Hi, I'm Dana Shoaf, editor of Civil War Times Magazine, and I'm back with Melissa Winn, director of photography, and we are once again on the battlefield of the September 14th, 1862 Battle of Crampton's Gap. Now, if you saw our first broadcast, we were about a mile and a half to the east at the headquarters of William Buell Franklin. We are now standing on the eastern shoulder of South Mountain, and if Melissa pans to the distance, you can see the crest of South Mountain. This beautiful mountain still has some nice foliage on there. Just as an aside, the Appalachian Trail runs right across the top of that. But if you bring it down a little bit, you can see the road leading up to the pass itself. And in the far distance, or the near distance, I should say, is a stone wall that was defended by the 2nd Virginia Cavalry and a portion of the 16th Virginia Infantry during the battle. And across this ground charged the 2nd and 4th Vermont of the 6th Corps to drive those Confederates out of this position. Now, I've been up here many times, but recently there's been some archaeology done here by the state of Maryland, and they found out some very interesting things about this engagement that actually may change what we think about the fight. And we're going to pan around so that you can now meet Julie Shablisky, who is the chief archaeologist for the Maryland Department of Transportation. Did I get that all correct?
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you for being here, Julie. So behind Julie, you see a red barn. And we've always thought for the longest time that it was behind this barn that the Vermonters formed up to attack that stone wall. But recently, your team has discovered what out in that field?
Well, our goal was to go ahead and do a metal detector survey 100% across these 9 acres to find out where the Confederates and Union troops fought. But in the middle of that, what we ended up finding are all these cut nails and rot nails, suggesting that we have a building right in the middle of that field.
So you think the barn might have actually been out there further?
Absolutely. Again, we have to wait till we get to the lab and start
Right.
looking at all the data. But I do think that instead of having this barn behind us, it makes more sense that there would have been some sort of an outbuilding, like a barn in the middle of this field.
So that might have been, there's a famous sketch done of the battle at the time, so maybe that was actually what was portrayed in the sketch and not this barn.
Absolutely.
All right, so I was so excited I wanted to get to that really quickly. So let's step back a little bit and let you introduce yourself a little bit more. So how long have you been with? Now why does the Department of Transportation have archaeologists? Let's start there.
Yeah, everybody always wonders, like, why do we have archaeologists at the State Highway Administration? It's because there are both federal and state laws that require us to consider our impacts on cultural resources. So before we widen a highway or put a roundabout in, we have to go out there to make sure we're not impacting anything.
Okay. So you do that for a lot of these transportation projects. You go there first to investigate what's there.
Yeah, absolutely. What we want to do is make sure that we're not inadvertently hurting anything, and so we try to design and avoid impacts.
So how long have you been with that position? How long have you had this position?
13 years.
13 years.
Yes.
So have you done a lot of Civil War? Is it mostly what you do, or just all eras, I would guess?
Well, we have to kind of be a jack of all trades,
Okay.
and so we do everything from 17th century to African American sites, and now to Civil War sites.
So why is all the emphasis suddenly out here on the fighting at South Mountain? Because I should mention, I didn't mention, this was the Arnold Farm during the battle. That was the name of the farmer that owned it at the time, and we are also on what is the western edge of the town of Burkittsville as you move up to South Mountain. So why were you out? You were out here earlier, and now you're working at other South Mountain sites. Why is the emphasis out here now?
Yeah, well, there's not going to be a Burkittsville bypass or anything, but what we want to do is we have funding to go ahead and look at sites that have a transportation link. So our goal is to look at the movement and the transportation routes that the troops used during the Battle of South Mountain.
Okay, so how long have you been out here working?
We had 3 weeks here.
3 weeks here.
Yep.
And you'll be out on the mountain for how many more weeks?
2 more weeks.
2 more weeks. So it's pretty extensive.
Yes.
How big is the team that's out here doing the work?
We have about a dozen people that are out here doing the work.
All Department of Transportation employees doing this?
Yeah, or contractors.
Contractors finding this history. That's
Absolutely.
fantastic. So you mentioned the nails, which is interesting too, because it's not only bullets or bayonets or pieces of muskets that tell the story of a fight, but the structures that blocked or protected soldiers at the same time that may be gone now have to be found through archaeology, finding things like nails. But you found some more specific military items as well, and you very nicely brought them over. Now, were these all found? Where were these found, or can you say?
Yeah, we can say, because we've completely vacuumed the entire field of artifacts at this point, because we did a 100% survey. And when we did that, we pinpointed exactly where we're finding the munitions, the personal items. And although we thought we'd find people fighting evidence of that, we also found evidence of a campsite, which I don't think we had that information before. So we were able to go out on the ground and exactly pinpoint where X marks the spot.
Okay.
So that's what we're trying to do is tell you exactly where the lines of men were fighting.
And you sweep with metal detectors, correct?
Right.
That's your main tool to use. Okay.
Yes.
And how deep can those penetrate into the ground?
Well, it depends on how good of a machine you have. Sometimes it can do the top 6 inches. Sometimes we have a piece of equipment that can go down a meter or 3 feet.
So 3 feet. So it must get a little frustrating though too, you know, like pull tabs and old beer cans, that kind of stuff. Do you find that too?
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to dig all those signatures because you never know when it can be a mini ball or a button.
Right. So you just got to do it no matter what.
And you get down there and you're disappointed and then you move on.
So it's fun, but it's hard work. It's out in the sun, it's out in the cold, there's bugs. It could be really challenging to do, I would imagine.
It's not always glamorous.
Not always glamorous, but sometimes it's glamorous. So let's look at some of the glamorous stuff here that you found. So you can just go through these.
Okay.
I guess the belt plate is really cool.
Yeah, this is probably our most exciting find. And it's a U.S. belt buckle, and so it would have been, you know, on a man's
waist belt. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's, and you can see, thank you, it has the back attachment or a portion of it where it attached to the leather and then it would hook into a hole. But that's fantastic. A federal belt plate, some soldier lost laying out there in that field. Really, really cool. And then this is a knapsack hook, part of a knapsack, right?
Yes.
That would kind of be on a strap. It would actually supposed to connect to your belt, but they often just cross them across their chest. I see a general service button with a C in the middle of it. I don't know if Melissa can see that or not, but that's kind of uncommon. Usually they're plain, but the C in the middle stands for cavalry.
That's correct.
And so you were telling me about this thimble. That has a really neat story too.
Yeah, this is kind of neat because it doesn't look like a traditional thimble that you'd have on your finger. In fact, this is considered a tailor thimble, and Civil War soldiers would have packed that with them. Interestingly enough, they're also doing some research on the CSS Hunley artifacts in the Hunley submarine down in Charleston, South Carolina. They have the same exact artifact down there, so we're comparing notes on what we found.
So there's a Confederate submarine, the CSS Hunley, in South Carolina, Charleston Harbor, and they found the same kind of thimble as you found out here in the field. So who made, you might find out who made them, where they mass produced. So somebody up here had a housewife, which is what they call the little bundles they carried their sewing equipment in, and lost their thimble, and someone on that submarine had one as well. That's really cool to put those together.
Yes.
And then we have 3 bullets here.
Yes.
And we'll just spin this around, and they've got some tags on them. But this is sort of your basic Union 3-ring 58 caliber mini ball, which is cool. This is a Williams cleaner round, which is also 58 caliber, and this disc actually was used. There was like 2 of these for every 10 cartridges, I believe. And when the musket's fired, that disc pushes up, and then it catches the rifling as it's going down the barrel and cleans the rifling of powder residue, which is kind of cool. And this is really neat too. This is a Confederate-made Gardner bullet. So this is straight up Confederate States of America ammunition that you found out there in the field. Either dropped, looks like it was dropped, or some Confederate dropped it out there, I would guess.
Yeah.
So a really nice diversity. Tell us about this. This is a really cool thing that they found. Really cool. I'm going to bring it up here on the white. This rooster badge. If you want me to tell it, or do you want to talk about it?
Well, it's just that we know it's with the 7th Ohio, and for some reason we found it out here in the field, which is kind of strange because we don't have any record of them being here.
Yeah.
So the question is, how did it get into this field?
Right. So this badge, the 7th Ohio Infantry from northeastern Ohio, nicknamed themselves the Fighting Cocks. And a lot of the guys are photographed with this rooster badge, the exact same badge. And they found it out here, but they're in the 12th Corps. So during the Battle of Crampton's Gap, it's the 6th Corps that's here, not the 12th Corps. So we're not quite sure how this got here. Maybe there are troops that moved through here during the Gettysburg campaign, both moving up to Gettysburg and then pursuingly after. Off the top of my head, I can't remember if the 12th Corps comes through this gap or not, but maybe that's a possibility. Or there was another possibility you said.
Yes, well, I think it's possible that a lot of times, like in the Olympics, you traded things. So there may have been someone who traded their badge.
A badge to someone else.
Someone else, exactly.
And it ended up here. But what an amazing find. Really, really cool.
And the other question, too, is like, why did they choose this fighting rooster as their emblem? And they talked about it possibly being related to people who are Democrats versus
That's right. That's right, because the 7th Ohio is a Democratic regiment, if I recall. Yeah, right. They supported the Democrats, and they were really proud of that fact. Just to show my nerdery, there was one company in that regiment from Oberlin that was heavily Republican, Oberlin, Ohio, and that was very abolitionist, so they sort of felt out of place because there were a lot of Democrats in that regiment. But that's right, that's really, I forgot about the political connection. Fantastic stuff. And this is what you can learn from archaeology. Now, it's always controversial. Tell me how it's different from what you do and what a relic hunter does.
Okay, the difference is that what we do is every single artifact that we find gets mapped in its exact location, and even though it's in a farm field, the artifact will oscillate within 5 feet. In other words, it won't move all over the place. It will stay pretty much in the place it was dropped. So that is very valuable for us because we're then able to recreate, once we put all of our points in a map, where the men were standing, where they were fighting, and where they were camping.
Okay. And do I recall, did you find where there was, you think a picket line was out here?
Yeah, you can see how far up the Confederates went, and you could tell based on what munitions were fired, which ones were dropped, how far up they came. And the same thing with the Union, is you can tell that they came across the field in a certain direction and where they stopped and where they camped. So the Union soldiers didn't move all the way up to that corner. They seem to have stopped right in this location. The Confederates didn't get as close as perhaps they would have liked.
Oh, okay. And I should point out, this is just a sampling of what you found here. You found a lot more bullets, and these are some of the cooler things, but a lot more bullets were found as well. And they can plot them out, determine how far regiments advanced or where they retreated, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Really great stuff. And a relic hunter, you know, they don't document it most of the time.
Right, and these artifacts too, I mean, because of the property laws, they belong to the property owner, but we encourage them to be donated to the State Museum where they can be studied and put in an exhibit.
Well, I gotta admit, and I told you this, I have an old house. I let guys come on our property with metal detectors. I didn't tell my wife Heidi, who's a museum professional. She's still mad at me about it, although I got to keep the stuff they found. And everybody says, well, you don't know what they took when they left, but I'm confident I got the stuff. But I know it's sort of like a back and forth debate. But there's no doubt that what you guys do by documenting this can help us understand these engagements a lot more. And the fact, I'm really blown away that there's the possibility there was another large building out there, and that may be the building the Vermonters talk about sheltering behind, and not this barn.
Yeah, another interesting thing too is that nails appear to have been annealed or burned. So I'm wondering if this barn went down during that battle.
Wow, that's really great stuff. And you're still doing the research to find out about all this
so
stuff.
we're still kind of just getting out of the field, so there's going to be new discoveries and interpretations that will come from this.
Fantastic. And I want to thank Julie for coming over. She's working today on another point on the mountain that they don't want to discuss at this point in time, so she took time out to come down here and talk to us today and show us these great artifacts. So thank you very much, Julie, for coming down. Everybody, I'd like to sign off now with Melissa, and we've got one more video we're going to get to in about an hour or so. It's a really interesting story. It's taken us a lot of detective work to find out. I hope you'll join us for that. Until then, thanks for tuning in. Anyone we should say hi to?
Yeah, we can say hi to Sue Spencer.
Hi, Sue.
Jeremy Brenneman.
Hey, Jeremy.
Rayanne Kaiser's on now.
Hey, Rayanne. How you doing? All right, thanks a lot, everybody, and we'll see you later on this afternoon.